Today on Politics Unplugged, the county recorder claims non-citizens are voting, the Supreme Court hears arguments on mail-in voting, and a political party could lose its name. We speak with Secretary of State Adrian Fontes about the latest on elections. Plus, the pain at the pump keeps getting worse. So what are state leaders doing about it? And Phoenix bars ICE from using city property. The panel tries to make sense of it all, now on Politics Unplugged.
And good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch. This is Politics Unplugged. We're still months away from the midterm elections, but it's still a very busy time for the Secretary of State's office, with a political party now forced to drop its name and claims from a county recorder about non-citizens voting. Here to get us all caught up to speed on all of this is Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes. Thanks for stopping by here. Let's start with that court ruling on the No Labels party. You were the one who originally approved the name change. They were the No Labels party. They went through the process. They gathered 41,000 signatures from registered voters to establish the party. You okayed the name change, and the judge said you didn't have the authority to do that.
Well, we received the name change. They did their own thing among their party, and we don't have any guidance in statute in Arizona. So I went to the Constitution. These are some folks who freely assembled, and they, using their free speech rights, said, we want to change our name. And I'm like, okay. And now the court says, well, Mr. Secretary, you don't have that authority. So I'm like, okay, again, this is, some people are making a lot of hay out of this politically. The bottom line is, as a neutral filing officer, when I don't have guidance and somebody appears to be exercising their rights, we're going to let them exercise their rights. But the court felt otherwise, and so that's fine. Now, if the party wants to appeal, that's fine. We've already stated that we're not going to participate in the appeal.
And the leader of that party, Paul Johnson, has already indicated he wants to appeal. Do you agree with the judge, though, in there? It was a pretty harsh ruling, I think I'd say, when it said, like, look, this opens up Arizonans to a bait and switch, that somebody could go claim to be one name and then change their name to something very different. I think he used examples of, he questioned whether the same people who would have signed for the No Labels party would have supported had they changed their name to the Nazi Party or the Arizona Anarchist Party. Those are the two examples the judge used in his ruling.
Yeah, I think that's a little hyperbolic for a judge to be doing stuff like that in a written ruling, but the result is what the result is.
You could see where you would make that case, though, can you?
Well, yeah, you could be less hyperbolic about making a reasonable ruling, and this was a reasonable ruling that I don't disagree with because, like I said earlier, we didn't have any guidance in law. Now, other secretaries of state across the country do have guidance about name changes and parties changing different status and things of this nature. We just didn't have that here in Arizona, so we did what we thought was right. The judge disagreed. All of the rest of it is politics and hyperbole, and we're not really worried about it. We're just going to administer the election under the law, and that's what we've always done.
Do you think there needs to be some more, a law change or a law created regarding this to clarify any ambiguity, or do you think this court ruling probably will establish, precedent?
Well, it does establish precedent as we stand today, and if the legislature wants to inject itself and make some kind of rule there, that's up to the legislative branch. I'm in the executive branch. We follow the law, and when there is no law, we follow the Constitution. And when a judge says that's not right, then okay, we shift. But look, we've got a lot of folks in the election administration world at the counties that have a lot of work to do. I'm glad we got this ruling when we did so that we can administer the election appropriately moving forward. But again, the party has the right to appeal. We'll see if they do. And this is sort of like, we're just moving on. This kind of isn't as big of a deal as a lot of very hyperactive political people want to make it.
Well, there's some people, I think, running this year and say it is a big deal. And those are people who are running for the Arizona Independent Party, who the judge said you can't keep that name. Filing deadlines are already passed. What happens to those candidates like Hugh Lytle, who is running as for governor under the Arizona Independent Party? What happens to him?
Well, as it stands right now, we will go back to recognizing the previously recognized No Labels party, and he will be running under that party. Now, whatever he calls himself is what he calls himself. That's about the politics, though. We're talking about process here, and those are two very different worlds. Let the politicians do the politics. We're going to take care of the process in this office under the law. Now that we have a clear ruling of law, that's what we're going to do.
Does this at all affect their ability to be on the ballot at this point?
No, we cannot say that this is going to impact any of the voters who signed those petitions for these candidates. We are going to make sure that we fight to make sure that those qualifications are still good regardless of the name of the party, and I think that's pretty important here, and that's pretty clear.
All right, some other issues I wanted to get caught up with you on. Recently, we saw that the federal government seized records and documents from the Arizona Senate related to the 2020 election. Last time I spoke to you, you didn't have any idea on what kinds of records that they had seized. Have you gotten any updates? What have you done to find out what was taken?
Well, we've run up against a brick wall with the FBI and the state Senate. We're just trying to clarify one very important thing, right? We're not worried too much about the ballot images or the cast vote record. All of that evidence has been thoroughly compromised by the cyber ninjas in the first place, and the state Senate taking those records from certified elections officials back in 2021. So we're not worried about that stuff. What I'm worried about is the potential for our address confidentiality protected voters. I'm worried about judges, firefighters, police officers who have protected addresses, and the personal identifying information of other voters. That one little corner is what we're trying to clarify, whether or not it was part of what the Senate president turned over. And if he did turn over unredacted records, that could be a significant legal problem for him and anybody involved in that process. So we just want clarity on that one piece, and we are still talking with the Attorney General's office about our options on how to clarify that one question, because we still want to protect voters' information, regardless of what's happening in some criminal investigation or some other thing. We want to have, at the very least, A, knowledge of what exactly information they took, and B, how we can protect the voters. Because that stuff contains day and month of birth, social security numbers, mother's maiden names, and that just doesn't need to be out there willy-nilly. We've got to protect it. I have a duty under law to do that, and we want to follow the law. Well,
let's talk to you a little bit about the guy who holds your former job. You used to be, in a previous life, the Maricopa County Recorder. Justin Heap has now referred over 200 names, I think about 207 names of people he believes or suspects may be non-citizens who are registered to vote. He thinks maybe 60 of them actually voted in previous elections. We don't have a lot of information as to like who these 60 are, what elections they voted in. Was this one election cycle? Was this numerous election cycles? This came from a list that would supposedly, you would think, might produce a few more names of non-citizens who were registered to vote or whatnot. He only came up with a 207 to turn over. I want to get your thoughts on that. And I want you to, do you think that this shows that this is a large problem, or this is a much more insignificant problem?
Well, first and foremost, this is part of the types of investigations that we do. Let's not forget, back in January, my office turned over 28 names to the Attorney General's office for prosecution for double voting, voting in the name of a dead person, things of this nature that always happen. And we pursue this sort of maintenance. The problem that I think we have now is the lack of clarity. As you've indicated, these names are what we think might be under certain categories. But one of the critical components here is we don't know over what period of time. I mean, does this list go all the way back to 1996? Does it go back before that? Does it only go back to the last cycle or two? And that would help us determine the seriousness of what's happening here, but that information is not forthcoming. And I think it's unfortunate when you have elections officials who are supposed to give us just the truth and sort of help us trust these systems with a clear understanding and separate themselves from older jobs where they were in the legislature, where kind of the political back and forth is more sort of what they're supposed to be doing. So what I'm hoping is we will have a lot more clarity in messaging from elections officials, particularly in Maricopa County, so that folks aren't just out there guessing, because that's the biggest problem we have. When you're not clear about your communication, other people can inject themselves, and then that turns into misinformation, and that's where the problems begin.
All right, we're out of time. We're going to end it right there. Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, thanks for stopping by here. And up next, we'll be bringing in our panel to talk about all of this week's major headlines, including the gas prices that keep climbing higher and higher. That's next on Politics Unplugged.
Gas prices blow a hole in drivers' wallets. Maricopa County wants a couple hundred registered voters investigated, and Phoenix City Hall is not cool with ICE. This is your political roundup. As the bombs keep dropping in the Middle East, gas prices keep soaring. This week, the federal government gave Arizona and other states some breathing room. The EPA waived a requirement for the more expensive summer gas blend. And Governor Hobbs now says she's open to suspending the state gas tax. Maricopa County Recorder Justin Heap is asking prosecutors to investigate over 200 people he claims are potential non-citizen voters. The county's top election official pulled the names from a flawed federal database. A judge ruled the former No Labels Party shouldn't have changed its name to the Arizona Independent Party. The leader of the party says he plans to appeal. And the Phoenix City Council voted to ban ICE from using city-owned property to carry out its immigration enforcement operations. City airports and courts are exempted. And that is your political roundup for the week.
And here to talk about all of that is Democratic consultant Stacy Pearson and Republican consultant Matt Benson. Thanks for being here. Let's start with those gas prices. They keep going up and up and up. EPA gave a little bit of a breathing room for Arizona and some other states. They're not requiring that special, more pricier summer blend. Is this going to have much of an impact at all?
Well, I mean, if we're talking a quarter cent or 25 cents off the price, when we're above $5 in some areas of the state, I don't think folks are going to breathe a sigh of relief. I mean, they are crunched.
And Matt, do you think this is going to help out at all? Because it is one of the top. Everywhere I go, people are just talking about this. It's painful to go to the pump. We spoke to a woman last week who's on a fixed income, and she's already saying that she's already had to change the way she lives, that she doesn't go to a lot of places she used to go to because she just can't afford it anymore.
Yeah, certainly every little bit helps, but the prices for gas, that is going to ripple through the entire economy. You're going to see it in the price of food at the restaurant, at the grocery store, in everything you buy. I think one of the things this is illustrated is the way that Arizona is attached to California with all of our refineries in California, and that is helping drive up the prices here locally. And I think it's something you're going to see more and more discussion about Arizona trying to unwind itself from California.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, every time there's kind of a disruption, Arizona always gets hit a little bit harder because we do depend on those pipelines getting gas from out of state, from Texas and from California. And some people have actually talked about changing that, over the years. We haven't quite got there. But some of the things that, the governor has now said that she would be open to, pausing the gas tax in Arizona. We've already seen Republican Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia do this. Would this be a good move for the governor? And it would only save about 19 cents a gallon.
I mean, every little bit helps. 19 cents isn't going to be the difference if whether or not someone feeds their family that week. But every little bit helps. And I think we're going to look at corporations who are going to get very creative in what days folks are required to be in office to try to keep them home and maybe help out a little bit in the bottom line.
Yeah, and you've worked on the ninth floor, the executive floor. There's just not much state government can do when it comes to these kind of issues, when it comes to gas prices. They basically can look at maybe a gas tax holiday, but that's about it, right? It's
very limited. And the gas tax, of course, pays for the roads that we all need. Yeah. So there's only so long you can suspend that revenue. I mean, the bottom line is gas prices are going to be an issue as long as we have this disruption in the Middle East.
Yeah, and politically, this is a political show, so who pays the price for this? Obviously, is it President Trump? Because the price started soaring after he started striking Iran, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and we see it in polling already that people are placing the blame squarely on the Republican president's White House.
And how does that filter down, like on the state level? We did see one of the top forecasters in the country move the Arizona governor's race from a toss-up to leans or likely Democrat. We saw that happen over the past week.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. Alarm bells are going off all over the Republican Party in this state and nationwide.
All right, and then, I guess anything else the legislature could be doing at this point to be helping this governor out at this situation at this point, because it doesn't seem like they're really willing to help at all at this point.
They have no interest in throwing a lifeline in any direction, and so I think we're just going to see more quagmire. I heard they're going on a nice spring break, and so who knows what's going to happen over there.
And let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, let's start talking about some of the more political stuff that's going on around here. Adrian Fontes, we just had him on in the first segment. This seems like a kind of a mess when it comes to the Green Party, the Arizona Independent Party, the No Labels Party. People got on the ballot as the Arizona Independent Party, and now judges ruling you can't change your name to that. Leaves some of these candidates in limbo, right?
Yeah, it seems like kind of a mess because it is kind of a mess. So, look, you're going to see these folks run now as No Labels. I assume we get through this cycle with that scenario, but it's certainly an odd situation that we're in.
Yeah, and the judge, it seems like really questioned some of the decisions made by the Secretary of State on this, because he did bring up that situation, the bait and switch out there, that you could get on the ballot as one name and then change your name to something completely else. Is this something you think that Fontes could pay a political price for?
I don't. I think the Secretary of State was in between a rock and a hard place, right? The party has the authority to change its own name. His ability to recognize it was unclear. I mean, I don't think anyone long-term is going to be concerned about this.
All right, we're going to have to take a quick break right now, but when we come back, we will return. When we return, the Phoenix City Council says ICE can't use city property. So what will that mean? That's next on Politics Unplugged. And to get more in-depth on the issues, check out the Politics Unplugged podcast this week. I'm joined by Axios reporter Jeremy Duda. The Politics Unplugged podcast drops every Sunday evening, wherever you get your podcasts. And let's bring the panel back in. Thanks for sticking around here. Big decisions made with the Phoenix City Council this week. They, obviously were making decisions about the Cesar Chavez and the fallout from what happened with that. But also they moved to vote to block ICE agents from using city property. Now, is this a real decision they're making, or is this more of a symbolic gesture? Because the airports and courts are exempt from this.
Right. I think it's both, right? I applaud the city council for trying to hold federal law enforcement to the same standards that local law enforcement is held to, which is not covering their faces, wearing body cams. I'm married to a cop. I mean, those standards have helped create a element of trust with the community that the federal law enforcement agents just don't have. And so I think the city's doing the right thing.
And what do you think about this? Do you think this is a real thing or more symbolic? Because, ICE is already at the airports right now, so this doesn't cover any of that. And what would Phoenix be willing to do to enforce this?
Well, that's the question.
Yeah.
If ICE came in, if they wanted to stage at a city park, for example, what would the city do about it? Would they really send in City of Phoenix police to arrest federal authorities? Would they be able, do they have any authority to even do that? I mean, I think that's an open question. I think it's more of a symbolic, it's more of a message of, if you're going to be here, do what you're going to do, but please don't do it on our city-owned property.
And do you think this is kind of, for lack of a better term, like kind of poking the administration on this when they see something like this? Maybe they feel a little bit more impetus than to come down and do in Phoenix, more beef up their enforcement operations here like we've seen in other cities.
Well, Arizona remains a swing state despite having a Republican registration advantage. We've got 2 seats in play that could control the majority of the House. So I think this is setting up this showdown is going to, yes, poke the bear, but the federal agency is going to have to make a very strategic decision whether or not they start behaving badly in Phoenix.
All right, let's move over now to state capitol. We were talking in the break. It's March, so that means budget talks must have been broken down, and that's exactly where we are right now. The governor last week announced that she was walking away from the negotiating table. She says that the Republicans aren't negotiating in good faith when it comes to stuff like Proposition 123, and that is the extending that. That was the initiative that was passed under the Ducey administration that siphoned some money out of the state land trust into public education. I just want to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, Prop 123 is still out there. Tax conformity is still an issue that hasn't been resolved. There's a lot outstanding. I think the larger point is that it's late March. Budget talks breaking down between the Democrat governor and Republican-led legislature is pretty much, we've seen that pretty much every year in late March for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, and last year we got dangerously close to a state government shutdown for the first time in the state's history.
Right.
Do you think we get there again, or do you think we go over the breach this time?
Oh, it's an election year. I don't think anybody wants to shut down DPS or whatever state agency. So I think they'll get there. And I do appreciate that the governor is calling the Republican legislature onto the carpet, saying you're not being honest and you're not showing us your cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and what are the big items that are left at the legislature? You mentioned there's Prop 123, the tax conformity issue. Everybody going into the year say, well, we're going to get this done by by April 15th filing date. That's probably not going to happen, correct?
It certainly seems that way, and I think the governor has vetoed two proposals that have come up from the legislature. So everybody doing their taxes right now, there's a real lack of clarity there. I mean, to me, that's probably the number one issue that needs to get done. And going into the session, you may recall, both sides said this was their number one priority to deal with right off the top, and it hasn't happened.
Yeah, both sides did say that nothing has got done. Who pays the price on this? Because I talked to a lot of people, and some people are really, at least frustrated, if not angry about this, because they don't know what's going to happen, whether they can file, they should file, or if they're going to have to amend later.
They may have to amend later. We're talking about paperwork and procedure, and that's super annoying for American taxpayers. But the bigger issue is, how can you cut that much in a conformity package without talking about the budget simultaneously? We know revenue is short anyway because of the current economy. You can't additionally cut taxes without figuring out where the money comes from.
Well, and this is the wrench, and this is, I think, frankly, the issue that everybody should be watching right now with gas prices that we already talked about.
Yep.
With the shock that is coming to our economy, you are going to see that result in lower state revenues. And how quickly, we don't know, but it's coming. Yeah. The economic impact it's baked in. And so how do you build a budget when you may expect that revenues are going to drop by 5, 10, maybe more %?
Yeah, because we're already starting to see some of the effects on that. I mean, close watchers of the legislature probably noticed in the Transportation Committee, there was a bunch of appropriations out there for transportation projects. All of those got pulled from the agendas this past week. Is that an indication that maybe there is some big money troubles coming up?
Oh, I think it's a sign of what's to come.
Yeah, and how do you think that the legislature deals with this moving forward? I think, is it good to just kind of wait it out? Because there's some rumors now that lawmakers are going to be taking breaks at this point. Is it good to maybe wait this out and see where the projections and the forecast for finances are going to be before you do get a budget done?
I think they're going to be very professional. They're going to come to the table and really talk honestly and openly. I'm kidding, that's never going to happen. We're going to have a whole group of people who have been elected who stick their heads in the sand and wait to see what is falling from the sky. I mean, this is a very unfortunate situation that Arizonans are going to find themselves in, be it the schools, be it DPS agents, be it whomever is employed by the state. This is ugly.
Yeah, and we got a long time to go still until the legislature wraps up. Meanwhile, we're seeing them focus on a bunch of other issues. What are you seeing out there at the legislature at this point that has piqued your interest out there?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue, look, this was the week that a ton of bills died because they didn't get out of committee. So legislative work is really going to grind to a halt. Not a halt. It's going to get very slow. And now this is when all the focus is going to move to the budget, which is the reason, as Stacy points out, they're talking about the legislature maybe taking a hiatus for a period of weeks while budget talks and negotiations behind the scenes can proceed.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up right there. Thanks a lot for joining us. And that is all the time we have this week. But be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.